Welcome, everybody. We have dear guests from all over Europe, basically. 3 are present with me on the panel physically, and 2 are hopefully in the online stream right now. We don't see them, but we hope they are there. My suggestion for this panel is that we first get an introduction from every space, and then we start to have a discussion about the topics that will come up, and slowly we will involve the audience for the discussion. And we ask everyone participating in this panel to prepare a small presentation of 5 minutes. I will be a little bit German and keep the time of 5 minutes, that we are that everyone is on the same page, really, and that we still have the time to discuss. To my right sits Piotr Sikora. He is from Prague and he came here by bike this morning, so extra sustainable. And yeah, Piotr, I would like to ask you to give a short introduction on Meat Factory and your space. Oh, he's a curator, basically, from Prague. As you prefer.
So hello, everyone. My name is Piotr Sikora. As mentioned before, I came from Prague. What I do there is I run as a curator a residency program at Meat Factory, which is a former glass factory situated in Smíchov, Prague 5, along with my 2 colleagues, Zuzana Belasova and Lucia Kwoczakova, who was also mentioned in the program of this panel. She's the co-curator, and Zuzana deals with the production management. What can I say? We host over 30 artists a year. It's pretty big studio program. We have artists from all around the world, and maybe since I have mentioned several information about it in the video, I will just add some parts which I haven't mentioned, just briefly, how we dealt with the corona, how the residencies were still operating within the corona time, so that we have actually turned more into like regional cooperation and invite artists from Czechia who were able to come. The reason why was why we found it somehow relevant was that there was no governmental support for the artists, so we thought we can take the resources we had already and just spread it among the artists. This is one thing I wanted to mention, and actually maybe this is just it. Maybe in the following conversation I can maybe elaborate a little bit more. So thank you.
Yeah, then we would like to see the video. The Hollywood video.
Oscar-winning video.
Oscar-winning, sorry.
Hello, my name is Piotr Sikora, and I'd like to welcome you to Meat Factory Artist in Residence program, one of the largest studio program in Central Europe. We're finding ourselves in Smíchov, Prague, in a former glass factory, which from 2007 has been a home to an ambitious art center with a goal to combine theater, music, and visual arts. As the residency isn't only oriented at the presentations and outcomes, we enjoy unveiling the residency processes and practices during regular open studios. Attending this event, you can see what each of the residents is working on, go through some of their older projects, and engage in a casual conversation. The Meat Factory Kitchen is an important meeting place for the collective of residents currently staying at the residency. Since 2019, it is also a key element of the food studio, which is dedicated to food as yet another medium of contemporary art. Another new initiative at Meat Factory Air is Sustainable Studio Practice Residency, which aims towards exploring new approaches to artistic production in the times of climate crisis. Sustainability here is taken as a method, not as a slogan, neither a subject. Until mid-August, you can apply for an open call for both of these studios. With around 10 studios available for art professionals, annually we host over 30 people, providing studios, apartments, production fees, and artistic fees. Our network of cooperation spreads from Tbilisi to Guatemala and from New York to Jakarta. We're especially interested in the region of Central Europe and the notion of in-betweenness, which has been the main topic of our flagship project, the New Dictionary of Old Ideas, which aimed at rephrasing the way we think and talk of CEE region. Core element of the residency program is a mutual artistic exchange, allowing us not only to host artists from abroad, but also to provide residency opportunities for the local art scene. In that matter, we have been cooperating with Air Antwerpen, C. Rockefeller Center for Contemporary Art, SAC Strasbourg, Artport Tel Aviv, and Centro del Carme in Valencia. If you look at the numbers, most of the residents visiting Meat Factory in the last 5 years were coming from France, Poland, and Germany. The Czech-German Fund for the Future, along with Goethe Institute, French Institute, and Visegrad Fund, help in making this possible. Thank you very much for your attention, and see you next time at Meat Factory.
Yeah, very nice. We will hear more about it later. And then we have our next guest, Christine Rahn. She's the curator, and we asked her to enlighten us a little bit on the Czech situation, as we called it. Yeah, and I'm curious to hear what you prepared.
Yeah, hello, welcome everybody. I'm also happy to share some thoughts about the so-called Czech situation or the context also, so that you get just an idea. And of course, Meat Factory is the key actor and important venue for international artistic exchange and mobility in that country today. And also Meat Factory is based on a private initiative of the artist David Czerny, and quite known artist in Czech Republic. And as people say, he was also inspired by his own artist in residency stay in New York in the 90s. So why I'm mentioning this, looking back at this funding history, we clearly see also the impact or the transformational time followed after the so-called Velvet Revolution. So you have on the one hand also the revitalization of former industrial sites or public buildings for arts and culture. We mentioned it in the panels before, as we also have it here in Saxony and in Germany too. And also on the other hand, you have this kind of DIY mentality, so this kind of hands-on practice of the independent artist community. So out of both these situations, new venues and collaboratives established, and also, and that's a quite important fact, also supported by engaged patrons, private patrons and foundations in the first beginning, so also mainly from abroad. So you have then, for example, I don't know if we have also the sheet that I prepared, maybe, no, okay. So it doesn't matter. So so actually those private patrons and foundations in the very beginning, so in the 90s and 2000, had been quite important to set up and bring up some outsets during that time also. And today also the Ministry of Culture is one of the main funder actually for artists in residence. initiatives, and also the State Fund of Culture then, and also the Visegrad Fund, which is quite popular or the most important foundation there in the Visegrad countries, which is Czech Republic, Hungary, Poland and Slovakia too. So this means also in between those countries there's a really strong connection still, and also still going to Austria as also neighboring country, and as you mentioned also to Germany as such, which is also related then to some special fundings, as you know, the Czech-German Future Fund or the Goethe Institute support over there in the country. Right. So also, and I think that's also quite similar also to the situation you find in Saxony and Germany, the programs and places diversified during the last time or the recent time. So also that professions that are related to the arts, so curators, educators, researchers are also enrolled more and more in the programs, but also there you find more and more a transsectoral thinking or experimenting with media, let's say. Or another issue, what you also brought up here during the talks before, you have also topics like sustainable ways of living or nature or the dealing with nature, and also the reflection of the global hegemonies. So insofar that you have also a focus on reflecting the situation of Czech Republic as part of the Central European and Southeastern Europe complex. So also all these post-socialist and post-Soviet countries, so how to bring them on a broader map and how to manage this. I think that's also a fact. So I mean, I can also later on hand out to you here, or maybe I can just give it into the round, because I just prepared a sheet where you find also other places in the country that are quite important for artist in residency programs. I mean, most of them you find in Prague, like Air Futura also, which is a similar concept also to Meat Factory, but you also have the time is running, but you also have, as I said, new initiatives coming up during the last years, and also guest professorship at the academy, but also summer schools in the countryside. Maybe that's also worth to mention. But I can just give it around so that you can see and have a look, right? Or you find also the links so to learn more.
Or we put it outside at the wall or something that we can look at it, or we just give it around. Thank you very much.
Or do you have anything to add, Piotr? No?
I hope you will have a lot to add later on. Yeah. So from our other neighboring country, from the that was the time. Kamje Verschuren from Rotterdam by train, in this case, to Dresden, and he's an artist, and he has been initiating a studio space in Rotterdam for quite a while now.
Yes, welcome. Yes, this year actually we exist 30 years, so we started quite a long time ago. Is my slideshow up? Okay. So Rotterdam South. I will talk a bit about Bad, which is the place I live and work for 30 years now, and Nach, which actually is a bigger Bad spread out over the south side of the city. Briefly, the south side, Rotterdam, is the only, you only end up there if you cannot go somewhere else. So it is considered the most poor place in the Netherlands. There's no institutes, there's no galleries, there's no restaurants, there's no bars, nothing. So that's a good place for artists to begin doing it yourself. So next slide, please. So we squatted Bad in 1991. We already were an art group, kind of art initiative since '87 in art school, but we squatted this place in the south, a former school building, and have a stiftung, like a foundation for it as an organization form. Next one. So It's a former school building. It has now 24 artists in 18 studios, 6 households with, I think, about 13 people. Kids are almost going out of the place again. We have had many guest studios, but now, as we have renovated it from a squad and pay a square meter price, we had to lower the amount of guest studios to 3. And the big part of the place is it's in a garden, which is, well, made us stay there also, because it's a beautiful place to be. Yeah. So it has a main hall, which is used for sometimes exhibitions, but we are in the south side, so nobody comes to visit there. So as a kind of exhibition space, it doesn't work, but as a social space, it has worked over the years for neighborhood meetings, political meetings, all kinds of meetings, because it's the most beautiful, larger collective space in the whole district of that neighborhood. Yes. There you can see the map. Yes, please. The front part. In 2004, we began a self-management organization. It's called NAC, New Atelier Charloes. And we were able to make a deal with the housing corporations who own, let's say, 70% of the housing stock in the south of Rotterdam. You're talking about over 200,000 houses, at least. And we would manage the empty housing that were not good for the market, but they couldn't destroy it because they didn't know what to build in the future. So we made a deal, and we would get these houses for free. So in 2010, we had more than 100 addresses spread out over the city, not in one cluster, but really in between people living there normally. We could give these houses away for free to the artists, mainly young artists, to start their lives, to begin their practice, and they would contribute 110 euros a month as a user fee. That would generate our budget, which then you talk about 140,000 per year independent money. With that, we could repair and maintain all the houses, but also what would be left would be our cultural budget, and we could invest in public projects in the neighborhood. Important is that in the construction itself, everybody works for 10 euros an hour, because you live for free, you can also work for free. And so, but we could then, if you work for 10 euros an hour, but the output could be 50 euros an hour as a freelancer, the public output of our budget would be like €500,000 on an annual basis. Then do that, multiply that by 20 years, you are the biggest cultural investor in the south of Rotterdam. So that has been working like that, and crazy project. Now when the world gets better, we get smaller. So we are counter economy. So when the bank crisis was on the maximum, we would be very big. Now Holland is getting up again, and Rotterdam is kind of finished in that way as a completely gentrified city. We are getting smaller and smaller and slowly disappearing, I think. But in NAC, we have now sustained 3 complexes. So BAD is sustained for another 30 years. We are now renovating a street with 45 apartments into social housing, rented as a collective. We have sustained another place for another 25 years, at least 36 apartments and studios. That's great, but because they all became independent now, the larger strength of the collective is gone. So we used to have like 300 artists in one team, which then you have a really political and financial force. Now we're getting all fixed and all fine, but the power as a group has become smaller. So that's briefly what I've been doing the last, 30 years, 25 years, as a kind of Sunday afternoon side practice, because I'm not doing that all the time. It's voluntarily, no business model, no money being paid, but it's a great adventure to be able to do it.
I mean, we will talk about things later on much more. I mean, there now show up different, very interesting topics. So please keep in mind more about it. We have Holger Jagersberger, hopefully in the screen. He is the managing director from Atelierhaus Salzamt in Linz. in Austria. Hello, Holger. Hello. Do you hear us?
Hi, Grit.
Hi. You are on the you're on the screen now. Everyone in the room sees you. Would you like to tell us a little bit about Salzamt? Introduce it to us, to the audience.
Sure, I would love to, but I guess maybe it's better to start with Lena, because my computer tells me he will update in 3 minutes, and this is nothing I can change because, you know, we are part of the city administration and there is no quit or abort button. So I guess maybe I quit for some minutes in the next few minutes and we'll be back in 5 or 10 minutes.
Oh wow!
Afraid.
Are you sure you would not like
Yeah, sure.
I mean, we hopefully see you back because
Sure,
updates
because
sounds.
it's the third update today, and it's just like a break of 1 minute. It's horrible, but sorry.
Okay. Okay, we really hope to see you soon then.
Sure.
Okay, in this case, I very much welcome Lena Kela from Finland in Miertoinen. And she is the managing director of Sari Residence. Yeah, and I don't know, she's an artist and she manages the residency. And Lena, would you like to introduce yourself a little bit and the work, and then we could see the film, for instance, that you prepared?
Hello, everyone, and yeah, thank you, Chris. I'm very sorry I'm not there with you. I would love to be there in person and meet you all, but I'm also happy that there is still this possibility to participate online. So I'm at the moment in Finland. We have a massive heat wave here and a storm coming. So I hope my lines will be running and I will not drop out. Seems to be good at the moment. So I'm the executive director of Sari Residence, and the residence is run by Kone Foundation, one of the biggest private art foundation and science funders in Finland. And soon you will see the video where we show how the residency looks like and who we are as a team. But I would just like to kind of interlink a couple of things that came up earlier by the presentation of Meat Factory. We also are focusing on ecological sustainability in our program, and I hope that we will get a chance to talk about that a bit more, because this seems to be a topic that is kind of we are all sort of taking that challenge and trying to find out our own kind of input in that. And the other is this COVID pandemic and how it's affecting the residency field. But maybe we get into these topics later on. We can watch the video now. Mm-hmm. So I'm not taking the whole time.
The Sari Residence is an international artist in residence for professional artists and artist collectives of all disciplines and nationalities. It is located in Mynämäki, southwest Finland by the Baltic Sea. The Sari Residence is maintained by Kone Foundation, and the artist in residence launched its operations in 2008. Residency is located in a peaceful rural manor milieu. Sari Manor, close to nature, yet 30 kilometers from Turku. The milieu includes some 30 hectares of field and pasture land, as well as forest. The versatile workspaces of the residence and the historical and scenic surroundings of an old manor house offer an excellent opportunity to focus undisturbed on creative work and opportunities for interaction with other residents.
The most important here are the residents, the residency artists and researchers. In the winter season we have individual residents coming from different parts of the world, and they are working here for 2 months doing their own projects or research. And in the summertime, we have group residencies, which means that the groups come here, groups from 3 people up to 15 people come here and take over the space and work with their own projects.
The residence is intended to carry out a project proposal presented in advance. The residency place includes accommodation, a workroom, and a grant. During individual residencies, also families and partners are welcome to the Saari residence.
Meaning of the place in Saari residence is really important, and you can't really underline too much how much everything is site-specific here. But as we're living, the time we're living, part of our residencies are done online. We're constantly developing new ways of enabling encounters. And this is a challenge for us, but we're really embracing it very happily, and we're willing to take it.
One of the fundamental ideas of Saari residence is the Saari well. The Saari well is based on the vision of an actual well. Throughout the ages, people worldwide have gathered around wells to collect water, and in many places they still do. There, they exchange thoughts, ideas, problems, and solutions. Thus, everyone gives and everyone receives, each in their turn. The Saari residence strives for sustainability, eco-friendliness, and accessibility in its activities. By social sustainability, we refer to actively dismantling Eurocentricity, inequality, and unsustainability in the field of artist residencies, and more broadly, the art sector, and increasing inclusivity.
Thank you. And I just wanted to mention this was the premiere of the video. It was the first time shown now.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah, thank you. Very, very interesting, very nice. I was wondering, we have lost Holger, I guess, now. So, no, he's still there.
I'm
Holger.
here.
How's your update going? Not.
Don't worry. I can go on if
Yeah.
you want.
Yeah, then I would prefer that. Would you like to introduce the space a little bit and your
Sure.
organization?
I will just start with my presentation and we'll
Right.
just make some comments on it if you
Yes, please.
follow the idea. So it's just like very simple, the view of Atelierhaus Salzamt in Linz, Austria, which is like a historic building, listed building, which was renovated during 2009, during Linz being European Capital of Culture. And this was the chance that the city bought the building, renovated it, and gave it to the cultural department, where I'm working since then and running the house, which is like a mix. This is like the location directly on the river Danube in the center of Linz, which is like around 200,000 inhabitants. Oh, now it looks like you want to make an update. Maybe we can go on again. It's like a mix of studios for local artists, which get the space for free for 2 years, just like an open call and like a jury selecting the local artists. They have like the workspace for free, but they are not living in the house, which would be like more interesting, but that's the way it is. The other space is used by the international artists in residence. It means like 5 studios and 5 apartments are for the international scholarship holders. We pay them like a stipend. This is like an apartment. It's like 30 to 50 square meters and is directly in the house. The studios are in the same house. Every studio has the view to the river. And we have like in the basement some workshops, and in the ground floor there is like an exhibition space which is nearly 200 square meters. And our program is like a mix of these residency artists, but we prefer to support their processes and not like working for some final presentation. So it's very flexible if we do like open studios or invite artists again, especially with some festivals or some cooperation in, let's say, public space, and also mixing shows with local artists. Sometimes we have some concepts and ideas and proposals from curators, which we want to help to bring to life. So more or less many international or local curators ask for this idea, and we provide just space and all the resources that we have. Yeah? Cooperations are mainly our future program with some small scale initiatives in public space, doing audio walks, stuff which happens outside of this white cube situation, dealing with questions of urbanism and connecting also with the bigger institutions here in Linz, which is an art academy and established festivals like the Ars Electronica. We're trying to get abundant spaces for temporary use. For example, this barber shop, which we use since 2015, and now it's like the 25th project. And this building will be sold end of the year, and we are looking for some central shops or some spaces we can use for free. But we have some columns or stuff which we use for format for different works between, let's say, photography, media arts, text-oriented works. Yeah, and I think if you're interested in applying or talk to us or find more pictures and information, just look at our blog online or follow us on Instagram or Facebook. And the more detailed questions will be after my limit of 5 minutes presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Holger. You would have been even 1 minute left, so you were really quick.
Yeah, but because I'm working for the
you're working
public
against
field,
the update.
I'm used to use less of my budget.
Okay. Well, yeah, I have been at Salzamt already almost 10 years ago. So the art academy is really close by. It's less than 2 minutes walk, I would say. Holger, I would like to start with you. How do you see your relation to the city? How do you impact Linz? Do you have any idea about this relation?
I think since we are founded by the cultural department of the city of Linz, we are looking more and more for artists which are dealing with some topics which are related to like life in the cities, being like living anonymous, being lonely if you're getting older, also the situation with traffic, public transport, cutting off every tree and so on, and the city development, gentrification and so on, having enough space which is free from commercial use and so on. So like all these topics. But on the other hand, I think as an institution here for the local field, it's also important that we are not really seen as a boring public small institution. So it's very important for us to work with the more creative groups and collectives here, which are coming from like underground and independent art scenes. So it's a very small community, I guess, in the city, but it has the advantage that most of the groups are really interested in collaborating. And as you talked from the academy, which is close by, I think we have a really huge library, perfect workshops there. There's also a makerspace nearby. So we have lots of tools and equipment, which we don't need to finance. And there are also, because of the Art Academy, lots of academic staff and guest professors and so on coming to the city. And there is like a nice mix of import, export, international guests, and also some studies which are normally run in English, like interface culture, where I guess there is not the single Austrian student, and also the PhD program, the ceramics master program has brought some international artists to Linz, and so we try to connect to this new citizens here.
Yeah. I mean, we have very different projects here. Maybe someone wants to jump in and talk about his or her project's relationship towards the environment. I don't know, maybe Lena, because I know that it's a big topic for her, or even Piotr or Kamil.
I can jump in if
Yeah.
no one is willing from there. Sorry, I don't see you really well. So yeah, okay, I'll continue. So yeah, the environmental question is really important to us, and just also to kind of interlink what Helger was saying about the public and the city. We are located in a rural environment, which means that we have mainly like fields and farmers around us, food production, small village also. And we aim at not only kind of running the ecological residency program, which is kind of it's our main target is the residency artists and researchers, those who live there for the period of time of the residency, but also besides like working with them within the program, we do also collaborate with the local community. We have community artists who works full-time at Sarvi residence, and an ecological coordinator, and they are also doing projects with the local communities and the local commune in order to kind of nourish the thinking, ecologically sustainable thinking there.
Mm-hmm. Kamil.
Well, we are not busy with these kind of themes at all. We are mainly busy to survive and find housing and affordable housing, and find a way to sustain ourselves as artists in a city that is completely gentrified and being branded as the new, hotter than Paris, with a city government that is last 8 years quite right-winged, liberal right-winged. Very difficult to sustain yourself, but we have a large community, so we are mainly busy with, trying to sustain ourselves and keep finding places that are free, open. We are not supported by any funding, so it's all within our larger collective, let's say, to survive. And it's a difficult battle to keep spaces free and open and accessible for everybody, so we are not busy with any kind of those themes of not as special topics.
Yeah,
because it's not an issue in our context.
Yeah.
I mean, it's first survival and then talk about sustainability. But there's no, in a way, short-term survival, long-term thinking about sustainability. But if the short-term doesn't work, there is no reason for the long-term somehow.
Yeah. Piotr, how about your?
I think that what you just Camille, what you just said, I think it's super important, because like what we can see here is that we juxtapose so many different environments I believe that it's completely different, like being in the urban environment of Rotterdam from, the 30 kilometers from Turku in Finland, that it just needs a different kind of method how to approach life with this sustainability motto in your head. And this is super interesting what you said. I mentioned before, I met these Dutch curators the other day, like 2 weeks ago maybe, and they were really like for half an hour explaining to me how complex the real estate situation is in Netherlands. So this seems super exciting to be able to organize and kind of be resilient toward this.
Even registration. So we have a large international community, because only through our organization you can register in Holland, because you need to have an income of 120% of minimum income plus a Dutch passport, in fact, in certain areas. So there's a special law in Rotterdam where you cannot register unless you have a Dutch passport and earn money. But we found a way to bypass that kind of semi-legal. So we can register a lot of artists who come from Peru or even Italy, and they can study on the master's degree or whatever art school. But if you cannot register, you cannot join any education. So we are on that level, trying to get people registered, trying to get them insured, find a doctor for them, this kind of thing. So it's really survival, but a kind of interesting process, but very different from running. I mean, we also run 9 residency programs, but also kind of half independent. But it's different from being a funded, kind of like city-funded organization or with state support, and then you also have to follow the state topics like sustainability or these kind of topics. So it's quite different reality, let's say, for me.
Can I jump in, maybe?
Yes, please.
Like in 2016, I guess there was the discussion of closing Salzamt after 7 years because also of our right-wing coalition here in the city. So also within being like part of the city administration is like a constant fight. So like our budget nearly went down to 30% of our budget is coming from the city. When we started, it was like 70%. So also we have the need of lots of EU project and stuff. But also, like my colleague said, the community thing was, I think, the only thing which helped us to survive, because it was not like some top-down institution. It was more like a grassroots funded thing. And that's also, I guess that's the source where the topics are coming from. It's not, we don't really make an open call with some topics. It's like just the proposals we get and which artists we can invite. So if the topics change, I think there will be also like different of these city-related themes.
Mm. Yeah.
It was a weird situation that like the independent artists community, which are really dependent on the fundings and so on, was protesting that a public funded institution should not be closed. This was a weird situation, but good for us and like a nice compliment for our program, I guess.
Yeah, I remember it was a huge outcry in the artist community. And yeah, it's true, we're talking about very different spaces here because Salzamt is providing a grant when you visit, when you come there. And it's also giving space for the local artists and the international artists. I know that in Sari residency there is also a grant provided. And there's one community artist there at least. And I don't know, do you provide grants, Piotr?
Yeah, we call it art fees. In 2015, I think my colleague who was in charge of the residency program set up this kind of like a minimum 500 euros fee. So whenever you come for the residency, each one of the resident would get this bare minimum of 500 euros plus production fee, but this always have to do what kind of project you're bringing in, and it's more about the presentation, because we would have every 4 times a year we would have this open studio presentation, and then you would need some extra money for this. This year, luckily, I have get the approval from our director to raise it to 700 euro. It was also, full disclosure, it was also to make it a little bit more attractive to international community of artists, because now we swift a little bit from invitation only and working closely with partners around the world to get artists into this open call mode that applies to performance studio. We just oriented ourselves more toward like this thematic studio. So we have performance studio with an open call, food studio, and sustainable studio practice, all with open calls. So this was the reasoning behind it, to raise it a little bit.
And so maybe my question before was like, what do you think you provide for the city, for Prague, for instance? Is there anything, or do you feel, because in the panel before there was like that artists should not only feel like, whatever, I'm missing the English word for it, but that they are not begging for
instrumental?
No, not instrumental. We can talk about this as well. No, that they're not begging for space and money, but that they also have something to offer. That's sort of a suggestive question, to be honest. But what do you think you have to offer for the surrounding, or is there anything? Is there nothing?
For sure there is. I mean, city of Prague would spend every year 10 million crowns. I know it sounds a lot, but it's, I don't know how much is 10 million crowns, like 400,000 euros, I would assume, annually for the whole institution. So there is a big support coming from the city, and there is a big interest, but I don't know if we really like provide anything. I think it kind of merged a couple of years ago. The probably happened this turn when Ministry of Culture and City of Prague decided to go for it. And I can juxtapose it a little bit with the situation in Poland, when in many cities there is still the residency program still did not get full interest from the city authorities. Somehow in Prague, this a notion of hospitality, because residencies at the end of the day, they're a lot about hospitality. I think it's very strong. It also has, in the last 20 years, Prague has a renown of a booming city in terms of tourism. It is only now that there is this reflection, what should we do with it? Prior to Corona, 8 million people visited the city. Last year, even though we were going through the harsh pandemic, 2 million people visited the city. The only way I know about it is because the mayor of the city posted recently. We have now quite cool mayor from the pirate parties, and he's trying to think through till what level city can be for tourists, and I think this is a perfect timing to do it. So I don't really know whether we're happy that we're receiving this money, that we're having this grant. Residency also, it's a part of it's a one dramaturgy out of 4 different dramaturgies. So it's I think that they kind of stepped into this river that, okay, we're going to fund residencies a bunch of years ago, and now there's basically at that point, and I hope it won't happen, there's no way back. They kind of have to substitute it, especially when you think of how much money they would spend on it, that it's nothing compared to, I don't know, film industry or any other cultural field. So it's a good price to pay for having this group of international artists coming every now and then and enjoying what Prague has to offer.
Mm-hmm. Christine, would you like something to add?
Yeah, maybe just something very general, which you could say for every residency place. Anyhow, when you invite artists from abroad, from other countries, I would say, especially in Czech Republic, it's quite important for the internationalization for the scene, for the artistic scene. I think it's quite important also to have this residency program, because as far as I see it, it's in the exhibition activities, in the programs, in the art institutions, it's not that much maybe as in Germany, yeah, that international. I mean, you have, it's definitely also because of the funding structures or possibilities that you have, and also this historical past, yeah, and as I was mentioning before, you know, this Visegrad connection to Austria because of the history, right, or also maybe France because of the Republic times, First Republic times. So I think it's quite important for internationalization and also to be part of the international artistic discourse or social discourse, I guess. So, and for that exchange, it's quite important. And maybe also to add another point that I also find in general interesting for the discussion, I think it's also that artists' houses and such places are so much important to make artists visible. Because as you know, especially when talking about fine artists or coming from literature, really in contrast to theater or music, speaking about classical music, you're working independently as a solo person, right? And so that's quite important to have these places to make or strengthen the visibility also, and then in the end also to make a plea for culture and arts as such, right? Because then it's or otherwise it's easier to lean back or have this public awareness of these kind of artist cliches here that we talked about it, yeah, this Bittsteller or this kind of, which is quite this old conception, right? And yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we have already mentioned it a little bit in the other panels. It's also, I think, a utopian projection, different models of living and working together. I mean, that's what comes into my mind, which is probably in your place most prominent. Am I right about that?
Yeah, I think like the exchange programs we do, so we have one which is a kind of, that's one supported and can also give artist fee and production money mainly to make public art. So outside, because we don't have an audience. In our neighborhood, there's nobody comes to visit you. Nobody comes in. So there's no reason to have a gallery or nobody comes into your door. But if you're on the street, you can do it in your face and then it's kind of active. But where I live, you live with us, you pay as much as we do, and then you're just like one of us. And if you stay in Nach, you pay rent. But with that, you are part of the cultural fund. So you buy yourself into the collective fund, and you can also use that as a resource. So then you can, still like 100 euros a month, but not much. But you are part of the community then, and also the financial construction. So these are different things. But as a react to what you said, I think it's also about, in a way, I mean, besides the big companies who are, working worldwide in Europe, we are doing Europe. We're also celebrating Europe, but in a very modest way. And maybe more in intellectual way of sharing culture instead of just the financial business deal that everybody's making. So I think it's a good alternative towards the European Union, which is mainly focused on economical collaboration or fighting against China or America as a pact. But I think, this for me, the residency programs and exchange between artists, whether it's funded or not funded, to just, and besides tourism where we all go to the same beach, this is a different way to celebrate and actually realize the idea of Europe in a very different concept than the economy-orientated business or the tourism, but in a different way. And I think that's a very important part. So in our neighborhood, there lives like 200 foreign artists from anywhere in the world. But also the people are living there from anywhere in the world. There's Turkish, Polish, Bulgarians. So it's like one big European mess of people. But they live together, they share daily life, they walk the streets together, they have the same bakery, the same supermarket, and there's no Dutch people. I mean, everybody's Dutch person, I don't know, but it's not like, there's not like a Dutch community there. It's everybody. It's like a big international, worldwide community. But then the only thing that kind of links them is they're all poor. But that's okay, so I think that's a very important part, and that artists are part of that society, and not just in the top or in the gallery or in the museum, but also just living the street and trying to live their lives in a different way. and organizing things, because the houses that we kind of provide, and so many people there start their own initiatives and their own things and their own. So it's not just us; it's them too. I mean, everybody is doing things because they don't have to work for money. They can have time to do other things without having to earn money. So they are free to do whatever they want. And I think that it didn't really improve the neighborhood, but it at least put something next to it. So now your car gets stolen, but then also there's a party. It's not like it's not all bad. So it's just by putting something next to it, it kind of equals it out, without becoming too much gentrified or too happy or too much smoothie area. It doesn't push other people away. It kind of includes them into the whatever place it is. Yeah. So yeah, it's definitely a contribution because it doesn't push them away. Yeah. So kind of passive contribution. They don't have to leave. Nobody has to leave this place.
Yeah, interesting.
And I guess, and also I think it's also about generation, because my kids already, I have one, but he grew up already. He's now leaving the place. But that's all his friends stayed in our place too. For them, it's normal. Like it's not a project. It's just their real life. They grew up in this place. Like here, if you go into the garden, you see younger kids walking. For them, it's like real. It's not like a project. So, and if you keep that on for a few generations, then life becomes a different life, and not just an art project. And I think that is, and they meet all kinds of strange foreigners here coming by. And my son speaks, in Holland you speak a lot of languages, but he doesn't feel scared to talk to a Chinese person or a Japanese person, kind of half English, half French or half German. It's like normal. Mm. And I think that is it has to do often with the second generation, the third generation, and the fifth generation that makes the difference. Because for them it's normal. For us it's a project or a curator or an artist or a boss or another boss. But it doesn't really matter. For them it's much more relevant, I think.
Right. And so being there present is really important. So really physically living there, it seems like that. But we have heard, and I've heard from other projects as well, that there were online residencies. And I wanted to talk about this topic a little bit more. Lena, how was your experience? I know that you did it. How's your resume about online residencies? Is this something that worked? Would you like, in an ideal world, if there would be a fairy asking you if you want to keep the online residency, would you keep it, or would you rather say, or would you change it?
Yeah, so our reaction to the COVID pandemic was to start running home residencies. We didn't want to cancel any of the awarded or granted residencies for the 2020 or 21, or maybe even going further next year. But to offer the residency place for those who couldn't travel, but they would stay at home. I would say that it's not an ideal, and this has been also the discussion we've been having with the residency artists. Like it's like they say that it's amazing that it could happen, that it wasn't cancelled, but on the other hand, it's better than not having a residency at all. So it's not what they were after when they were applying to come to the place, because residencies are also about the place, very much about the place and the connections that those places create, and how it affects thinking, how kind of changing your daily routines, not being at home, but being elsewhere, how that influences your kind of producing, how you produce ideas, or how you think, or how you communicate with the others. And when you are doing online residency and staying at home, it means that your daily routines stay with you. And for some, it's been a challenge, even though the pandemic and lockdown meant that people really stayed at home. But still, for some, it's been also meaning that they have to take their kids to the kindergarten, or kind of go to the shops and do those things that they are used to do. So this shift in way of thinking doesn't so much happen, but we're trying to encourage it and also influencing it by having these online platforms where the residency artists who are physically in Saari and those who are in their homes in different parts of the world, they can meet and share. And so we have weekly presentations where each of them present their process and we discuss about them quite extensively, and then also different kind of discussion or certain kind of discussion platform called Slack, where they can have calls one-to-one or group calls or chat or just share preferences, whatever. But it means you're still lacking something. You're lacking the experience of being in a place, and that's why if there would be a fairy asking if home residency or online residency is the right format of doing or running the residency, I would say that it's an option, but it's an option in that case when the physical residency is not possible. But I also think that it's it's a question of accessibility, because it offers a possibility for those people who cannot travel in the future, also when we are over the pandemic, hopefully someday, but people who maybe are physically not able to travel, or their family situation doesn't allow them to go to the residency in Finland for 2 months, that they could also experience it and participate in the residency in another format. So we are, even though we are waiting to be able to go back to running the residency in a way that we know that we are good at, having people physically coming to Saari. On the other hand, we are at the moment also developing this home residency concept with service design, and really kind of taking a closer look at it, like how it could function better.
Right. Yeah, I definitely think there are some aspects of like you can be here now in this panel. I mean, that's definitely good that we have this option, but yeah, probably we have to evaluate what we can keep and what is better to be left wherever it is.
And there's always this feeling of lacking something. Like I'm missing the feeling of being there physically with you, and kind of seeing the audience and experiencing you other people in the panel. Of course, this is an optional way of doing it, but we have to admit that we are lacking something also quite important.
Right. I would like to open the discussion to the audience a little bit. So if you have any questions or comments, you are invited to share them. Possibly also if there's something from the other panels as well that you wanted to discuss or bring in. This would be the opportunity also. Slowly, you can think about it. Or to exchange with the present activists. So, yeah, but maybe it's already afternoon and everyone is tired. I don't know. Yeah, there's a question. Juliane.
Hey. Hello, I just wanted to say first, thank you for the whole event. That's like super cool. I'm the executive director of Pilotenküche, which is also an independent residency in Leipzig. And we also worked online, and I just wanted to say it is much more sustainable. That's also a point, because traveling artists is like, everybody in the cultural business was traveling before to a conference somewhere or for a residency. Often residencies are just like 4 weeks or 2 weeks or these kind of things. We do it for 3 months, but still there are so many people. We are super happy to be able to work with an artist from Palestine, for example, during the last month, and that would have not been possible. So I'm super thankful for that.
Yeah, sure. I mean, that's, yeah. And how did you realize it? How did you do it?
Oh, we did it on Zoom. Oh, what you mean? Yeah, but it was also task-based. That was a different thing. We were given the artists the option to work together on scores so that they can also dive deeper in their own practice and share it with others. And then another artist was responding on them. So it was task-based and collaborative. Yeah.
Aber is wants to say something.
I was very interested in the project in Rotterdam and asking myself, I didn't get exactly how you got the flats from.
Yeah, it's a pity because I kind of prepared 19 slides which explain it all in German and English. Maybe the slides can be put into the final edit of this conference because it also kind of made me like, oh, what do I see? Oh, where's my story gone? Well, the idea is that let's say 70% of the housing stock in the south of Rotterdam is owned by housing corporations, large, different kind of housing corporations. They have social housing, only social housing. But some of the houses are so old or they didn't maintain it, so they are kind of not within the legal context. They cannot rent them out as social housing because they're not up to standard. So they are kind of empty, but they cannot destroy them without having to build something new. Otherwise, you would have this brownfield vlaggen everywhere in Rotterdam South. That's not allowed in Holland. So you can only destroy if you build something directly new. Otherwise, the half of Rotterdam would be empty brownfields, you call it, no? Like empty land. So they don't know what to do with it. And somehow we found this opportunity to take over the responsibility of this kind of houses. And actually that came through an open studio route because we wanted to do an open studio, but the artists were living too far away. We had to bring them together. So we started to use shops, empty shops, as to bring it all together. And then through that contact, we got the question that, do you want to, can we use this house? Can we use that house? And a lot of guest artists who came but they want to stay longer. They want to stay in Rotterdam a bit longer. So then we try to find these guest houses. And at some point, there was a whole street that had to be closed down, or the old people were squatters and they're globalists, well, also drug places, but let's say all the users of that street had to be unified in a new contract. And we had to set up a foundation to keep that alive for another 10 years at least, which actually became 20 years. But all these people had to be unified in the contract, and then the housing corporation would only talk to that organization. We would take over all the individual contract, the registration, and the maintenance of all the houses. And in return, we got them free for as long as it lasts. And once that contract was written, which took a long time, because you have to write it legally precise on one hand, and on the other side, of the artist side, you want to be as free as possible, because otherwise there's nothing to do it at all. And that worked out. And then, so once we got this contract, we could work with all the housing corporations. So we could claim all the empty housing, which would save them money. And so they give it away for free, in fact, as long as it lasts. And that's how but it was like a bit of a kind of strange adventure, like, oh yes. So in the best time, we had over 100 houses, which is quite a lot. And it's not just, that's very different from artist residencies, because you're dealing with people living, babies, separations, people get into psychosis. I don't know what. I mean, artist group is like a various group of people to deal with. And so it's also, it's like a small housing corporation, but then without the money. But it's all the real life issues are part of it. And it's not, I mean, if you have residency, you sometimes have an artist who lives a long time and then maybe gets into trouble or something, or accident, or maybe, I don't know. But if you have like 20 years, 250 artists, there's a lot of lives in one little bubble. But they can also take care of each other, which is also a good thing. So it's not all that we do everything. But it's a different way of it's a strange adventure, but it will disappear, although it's still a good idea. So if you can have our records, if you want to copy it somewhere else, you can have all our documents, and then you can just translate it, and then, because it's a legal document, which is quite interesting to deal with, because of course not all legal things are the same everywhere in the world, but you need this legal document to be able to access that level, and you need build up trust. I see somebody mentioned like you need only 12 crazy people. Was the speaker? It was you. Yeah, in our case, it's only 3. So you need 3 crazy people, and then you can also do it. But it's like that you say. But also you need trust. Somehow you have to build up trust with people and with council, with the city, with this kind of things that take a long time. So I guess that's like a coincidental moment where you get this trust and then it builds on, but you cannot really plan it.
And why will it disappear? You said.
Well, because we are not. Because now you cannot find a house anymore in Rotterdam, and the price went up 300% in the last 3 months. So it's still cheaper than Amsterdam, but it's like 300% on top. Due to the bank crisis, the maximum social housing rent was like 420, but because due to the bank crisis, housing corporations made wrong deals and they were punished by the government and saved by the government because they cannot go bankrupt because all these people are living in it. Now they have to ask maximum rental price and cost covering rental price. So it went from 420 to 750 social housing. So nobody can afford their house anymore. And you can definitely not find a house. So they completely changed, and we will not get any houses anymore because there will be no empty houses, and not even the price is too high. So we are not strong enough. So my advice is buy anything you can while you can, because that's the only way to sustain yourself, like they do here. It's the only way to sustain yourself as an artist. And also in Bad, we rent it as a collective. But if I stay there 20 more years, I will pay 300,000 euros private rent. If I would have that money now, we could all buy the whole building. So what we need is political engagement, and we need the city as a bank. The city should become the bank and pre-finance art places so that eventually you pay rent, but you pay, at least at the end, you are the owner and not like a poor bastard with nothing. You have no pension, you have no house, so you end up, when you cannot work anymore, you have nothing. And you end up in social housing for 720 or 40 euros per month, which you cannot afford. So it's a very wrong system unless you have money or property. So to all the artists, unify yourself, try to buy something, but the city should become the bank. So not a commercial bank, but the city should be the bank to pre-finance these places so that eventually you can become the owner and you can actually die there without too much problem. You know, because I'm 53 now. I'm looking forward like how I'm gonna end my life, how I'm gonna focus, no, how I'm gonna die, where I'm gonna die, and how I'm gonna die, because I have nothing. You know, that's a serious problem if you get that age, and that you're still lucky that you can work. But I mean, that's you work till you die, and then but then what? You know. So it's, I mean, yeah, I don't know. It's too serious for this moment, but I think it's a very serious.
I mean,
Maybe
it's a very.
you could go for a residency at some point.
Yeah, never leave.
Come to Prague.
I come to you. I come to you. Well, no, something like that could be done, but we're now looking for a countryside option to leave the city because the city is ending for us. They don't. I mean, they still talk about creative city, but now it's designers, it's sustainable producing designers. There's no artists involved anymore because the artists cannot afford all these places, all these creative buildings. They're creating a lot of creative places, but they're too expensive for the visual artists, let's say, or the independent artists who are not commercially engaged, so they will go, and you get all the designers, architects, and whatever.
Yeah.
So it will definitely change fast. Or it's already changed, in fact. So
that
we'll
seems to be an overlapping topic in the conference. The politicalness of spaces, having spaces, being access to spaces, and the periphery, the countryside, gets more and more interesting. Although I think we still have to monitor this dynamic because it's not without problems, I would say. And yeah, I mean, there's it's another question.
Yeah, thank you. I was someone earlier demanded that artist residencies should work together, especially after experiencing the push on digitization through Corona. So I was wondering, I'm not walking in your shoes, so I don't have to come up with those ideas in terms of corporations, but I was hoping you could give us some experiences or a best practice experience for corporations between artist residencies on a European scale.
or maybe wishes. So what would help you to be able to exchange with other initiatives?
Well, we actually do have this kind of exchanges between Prague and many different places. I might even risk to say around the world, that we would basically cooperate with. I don't know. I will give an example. Antwerpen, and provide a space for Czech artists going to Belgium, staying there, getting to know Belgian artists, and then they both come to stay in Prague and work together in this environment. And I think this is quite interesting way how to do it, because it's based on the trust, and we've been doing it for I think 9 years already. So there were 18 artists engaged in this program, and I gotta say it's kind of funny as as I see it now, that there has been, of course, a lot of problems. Even recently, Antwerpen went through. They basically, the board kicked out the director, and there was a huge protest from the Antwerpen art scene against the board. So we would also be affected somehow by these kind of turbulences. But apart from that, we would also have like Strasbourg as a residency cooperator, Valencia, or as I mentioned also in the presentation, C. Rockefeller Center for Contemporary Art. Also, we would do this kind of exchanges. I think it's not only a matter of providing a space and a facility and all that, but also to learn from one another what kind of models we're used to, and of course to find yet another way how to make it sustainable financially. So to find someone who can bring money to the table.
And has digitization been any helpful? I mean, I can't really see you, sorry. No.
Yeah. I think we're dealing with some technical. Sorry, could you say it again?
Yeah, has the past 15 months, have they changed your way of cooperating with all these other residences you just mentioned, and has digitalization changed that, or has an effect on that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, of course. Well, we had to postpone some things, and this was our tactic, basically, we didn't really have a chance to offer a lot of online residencies. I also think like that the Zoom fatigue at this point is it's quite huge. So we just postponed, or we also have, that was kind of funny, artists stuck in Antwerpen for half a year instead of 3 months. We were also, when the pandemic hit, we were also hosting artists. But this is also what it was mentioned already, like there's a massive difference between Prague and western part of Finland, that traveling to Prague from Berlin, from Austria, from all around the Europe, basically, it's quite easy, I must say. So we could always postpone it, or as I mentioned, we had 2 people staying over, one artist from Berlin, one from Vienna, because they said, if I have to die in Vienna because of this COVID-19, I can die in Prague anyway. Like, it doesn't really make such a big difference. So they were staying with us throughout, the worst, the lockdown, when no one really knew what to do, working on their project, doing some online performances and setting up a compost facility. So, yeah.
Yeah, we had one. Well, we continued, in fact, although people sometimes had to stay a bit longer than planned because they could not return to Napoli or to Marseille. But then we have another residency. So, because our residency, let's say the residency which has funding, and this transforms into a restaurant in summertime, so you cannot always stay there. So wintertime is a residency, summertime is a restaurant, and so they had to leave that restaurant because we had to start the restaurant. But then the restaurant was also closed, so in a way it became takeaway restaurant, give and takeaway restaurant. So it was a bit of a mess, but the only time we really couldn't do anything with people from the UK, because they really couldn't travel. And second lockdown, they couldn't move. And then we invited some Dutch artists to use the place because it was empty anyway. So that was actually quite easily solved. And in a way, that residency I do by myself. So I just live around the corner and I don't need to do so much if they know their way already, provide a bicycle in Holland, and help them to produce things. But that happens on the basis of the things they come up with, and they say 3 months, 4 months. So it's not a big deal, in fact. But it is of course nicer when and they make public art, so they don't need an audience. So they can just do it on the street, and people can still see that. So in a way, it was not very problematic for me, at least. But traveling was difficult sometimes, or a bit like, should I go, should I stay? Like little questions. Yeah.
But the question was also, what would help you to exchange with other residencies or with other places?
Well, we have a history about that, because there used to be in 1996, for example, used to be maybe 25 different artist initiatives in Rotterdam, big ones, and they were the only infrastructure. Maybe there was one big museum and one gallery, and that was it. And they actually organized their own residencies with direct exchange, so with Japan, with Budapest, with what else was there? But they kind of like continuous exchange of artists amongst themselves, and without money, in fact, because you were sleeping in the place where you left your house, and then you swapped houses or swapped studios. But all these artist places are not existing anymore. So I think there's maybe now 5 or 7 left, and 3 of them are going to go soon. So there's almost nothing left. There is no city program. So the only program that is there is the one with Nach, Bad, and the other one in the restaurant place, which we organize ourselves. But then, of course, I've been away quite a lot, and now we have residency. I just send out a kind of open call to my friends in Marseille, then in Nantes, and then in Napoli, and maybe even. It's a bit based on colleagues and other initiatives, not so much on residency programs. We did one with Frankfurt, and we did one with Antwerp as well. But we don't have any money to send anybody. We can only have money to receive somebody. So, I don't know. But that's, so not really difficult, in fact, but mainly not so much on residency programs, unless they are connected to artist initiatives somewhere else in Europe. But we had more than 800 artists in Bad over the last 30 years. So the network is enormous. And we had 35 in the restaurant. And all the artists in Nach are actually all residents in a way. Sometimes they stay for 10 years, but they're all guest houses in a way. And that is like crazy network all over the world. So I don't have difficulty connecting. It's more like that I don't have enough place to connect with. Somehow. But the connections are there. And actually, if it's an open, I need artists to come from October till December, 2 by 2. So if you know anybody who wants to come, let me know.
That was a really specific call.
Because I still need to organize it. But summertime is coming, so it's difficult to organize. Yeah.
And have you been using maybe this this iPortunus program for funding residencies?
Didn't try, but
this could be maybe good to mention, because it's like it's a tool that apparently Creative Europe program, this like program to support cultural initiatives across the European Union, offers to individuals, and it's actually since 2019 it runs as an open call. You apply with the project, with residency or traveling project, something that would require extra funding, and you can get, I think, up to 1,200 euro a month, in cooperation with an institution or several institutions. And now they also started this iPortunus houses that will supposedly foster the cooperation between different institutions. So it's more about I don't know, like enabling people to like curators from residency programs to travel around and get to know different practices. How is it in different places? So it's more like an internal, but it's smaller, it's just new. So I thought it would be good to mention. But the iPortunus, it's quite huge. I think now they granted more than 100 people with quite okay money to travel abroad. So maybe this is a good.
So I was wondering if our panelists abroad have something to add, and if they are still there.
Yeah. I can talk about our experiences with cooperations with other residency programs, because like we are located like 30 kilometers next to the Czech border, like up north from Linz. And so for me, it would be really interesting to have like this Czech-Austrian cooperation dealing with our history and all these issues. But for us, for example, I think it's really hard. Besides, we have a budget, but we are not that interesting to be like a boring mid-Europe country. And I guess we are also looking for more like non-European partnerships now. But I guess there is also a big potential still in dealing with our neighbor countries. But for example, with Czech Republic, we had some small cooperations, but in the end, especially with our cooperations in non-European countries, it's always like a matter of budget. Yeah. And so, for example, our cooperation in Egypt or in Iran is based around the Austrian embassy. There is not a cultural institution, but there is at least money for traveling and all these basic travel needs for artists. And they have like a room to stay, but they're not really linked to a cultural institution. But this was the only chance for us to get this bilateral exchange with non-European countries in the last years.
Okay.
And also the idea of this nice European funding program, our experience with being like the lead in 2 European projects, it was really quite intense administration work. I'm working here like part-time, and there is a second guy running the production side of the house, and it's really hard to deal all with this administration. So I think we quit in 2017 to get this European money through enormous administration, and also some partner meetings in every partner country, lots of traveling with no outcome for our people, which is like the artist community. So too much overhead management in our experience.
I don't want to work in favor of European red tape, but this iPortunus, it's super easy. We have some experience with this, and for the hosting institution, it's super easy because most of the administration goes, like, the artist has to deal with it. But it's super, like, it's next to nothing. You just get the money and you say like, okay, I did this and that. You don't need to present any financial, like any receipts or anything. It is nothing to compare from my experience. Also, we had a Creative Europe project, and being as a leader of this project, it is nothing in compare with iPortunus. This one's super easy.
Yeah, thanks for the recommendation.
Yeah, thank you. Lena, do you have something to add to this?
Yeah, yes, thank you. As we are self-funded, being a foundation, we haven't been doing so many collaborations with other residencies earlier. Our main collaboration has been with an organization called Artists at Risk, who have been curating artists who are under political or other type of risk to Saari residents. So that's been going on for the past years. But now we are kind of, thanks to this big digital leap and all the opportunities that is bringing in, we are now in new collaboration with Nordic residencies from all the Nordic countries, plus also one from Scotland. And what is bringing us together is our common interest in climate action. So our aim is to learn together and learn from each other, and also to develop new thinking in the residencies. We've been thinking that residencies are places where artists comes, and different kind of artists from different cultures and places, they come together and they think. While they make work, they also think and they discuss, and that's kind of developing certain kind of knowledge, new knowledge. So the residencies are very much places of learning, and and also developing new ideas and insights. So in this project, we are working together for 3 years, not meeting physically so often. Only 2 times we will meet physically, the whole group, but mainly we will be visiting each other's residencies and sending artists to other residencies, but mostly the work will happen online, and also then distributing the knowledge to our local audiences in each of the countries, but also to contributing to the colleague residencies and to the field in arts in general. So this is something that is just starting, and maybe thanks to this time when we've been spending so much time online, that this was possible.
Great. Christine, do you have you something to add, or
not really at this moment, right? Yeah, just I don't know. Maybe to add also, when you mentioned this e-Portunus, I don't know if the European Culture Foundation is also still running these kind of small grant things also for supporting the mobility, which is also similar to that. Yeah, easy to access. And just to add this at this point, maybe. Yeah.
I think there were several. There was a Step Beyond that was actually
Step Beyond.
I don't know whether they're still on, but they were basically trying, like they were giving us support for traveling from center to peripheries and the other way around. By peripheries, I don't mean Prague. No.
Center.
Although I was checking it the other day on Wikipedia, and there are like central countries, peripheries, and semi-peripheries, and I was thinking like, for sure we're gonna be semi-peripheries, of course, and then turns out that no peripheries, but Austria was also there. So I think what Hogler mentioned before, this like boring Mittel European country, we have a lot in common with Austria in this matter. Yeah, so the Step Beyond was, for instance, I had the chance to use it for traveling to Tbilisi, or you could travel to Morocco, and it worked the other way around. And there's also this on move grant that could support this kind of mobility. I was a couple of weeks ago at this meeting. There were Visegrad Fund and Creative Europe desks, and it was kind of funny to see how they were praising mobility, and they were saying like, yeah, mobility, this is the most important thing. And they were really like at high hopes that after this whole pandemic will be gone, everyone will be back to travel again, which isn't a bad thing. If you're not using planes, of course. Okay, I don't know where I'm going with this, so I will just finish. Sorry.
No, actually, this was a very good last statement, I think. So we have went through all kinds of diverse forms of organizations of these spaces, really, really different places and funding forms and organization forms. We ended at the funding, of course. It's always back to the funding at some point. Yeah, but I would really like to thank all of you for coming, for sharing your structure, your thoughts. Thank you very much for your work in general. I think it's really, really great what you do, all of you, with the different artist spaces. And yeah, so let's try to keep the spaces, to support the spaces, and to open new spaces maybe, that we have a place for the production of art and for exchange and things like that. So I guess the panel is closed now.